I woke up before dawn, and he was still there, the weight of him in the bed like the echo of a promise I couldn't name. My mind is a haze of half-remembered breaths, soft laughter that's still trembling in my memory. The room is painted in pale gray light as the sun strains to climb above the blinds. Every surface, the sheets, the air, the way his silhouette stretches across them, is saturated with a heat I swear I can still taste. I lie very still, heart drumming in my throat, daring reality to stay as tender as memory. I can't help but replay the night in loops, ours, his, mine. I remember how he leaned in, eyes dark, breath brushing my neck when he whispered something I couldn't quite catch. Maybe I didn't want to. My senses followed the script of instinct. Breath hitching, pulse flaring, fingers drifting toward each other in the dark. I can feel my skin still tingling where his fingertips lingered, electrical and aching, as though the memory itself might ignite. I thought it was a fleeting collision, just one night of reckless abandon, but here he is lying there like a question I can't resist. Even half awake, even uncertain, every inch of me says don't do this. But every inch of me knows I already have. Outside, the world is still asleep. Inside, I'm collapsing into an exquisite kind of disarray. I don't want to move for fear that this fragile, suspended moment, our moment, might shatter. My mind spins with longing. Did he stay on purpose? Was he afraid to go? Was he confused or hopeful? And me, what am I hoping? I shift, breath catching, and I find him watching me. His eyes are soft and unreadable. The air between us pulses with all the things we wouldn't say aloud. Uncertainty, regret, desire, fear. My pulse flutters with heat. I want boldness, clarity. Instead, I taste vulnerability, mine, his, entwined. 10 breaths. 11. The silence speaks louder than any promise. I feel the prickle of awareness. This isn't just a stumble into each other's arms. This is a decision, and one I'm already afraid of making. My fingertips brush his shoulder, and heat blooms under my skin. The fact that he doesn't pull away, it's permission. Or maybe it's a confession mirrored in stillness. I swallow, caught between collapse and surrender, and that moment stretches until it crackles. I open my mouth to speak, but the line between waking and wanting blurs. The dawn edges further across the sheets, and I realize that letting this go may not be an option. Something is shifting, something in me, in him, in the space between. And then my phone buzzes, cruel and sharp, echoing through the quiet like an intrusion. What it says doesn't matter yet, only that the world outside is waking. And whatever comes next, it will change everything. The screen glowed like an accusation. 3 missed calls. 1 message. From someone I promised wouldn't matter anymore. My stomach twisted, not because I'd forgotten, but because I hadn't expected to care. Not like this. Not after the way last night unfolded. But guilt has a way of waking up faster than the heart can process what it truly wants. He noticed the change in me immediately. His eyes flicked to the phone, then to my face, studying it like a language he didn't speak but wanted desperately to understand. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, rough from sleep. Or maybe from restraint. I nodded too quickly. Yeah, just didn't expect to wake up like this. I meant it literally. I meant it metaphorically. I meant it in every way that mattered. Because the truth was, I hadn't expected to feel anything after he left. Except he hadn't left. And now his presence was unraveling every neat little box I thought I'd packed my emotions into. He sat up slowly, sheets falling around his waist, revealing just enough skin to make my breath stutter. He didn't reach for me, he waited. I could feel the tension ripple through his stillness, like he was fighting the urge to undo every inch of space between us. And I wasn't sure I'd stop him if he did. "I should go," he murmured, though he made no move. It was a question disguised as a statement. A door left cracked open. I didn't answer. I just stared at his collarbone, the way the early morning light traced it, the way my fingers itched to follow. I wanted to say don't. I wanted to say stay. I wanted to say lie back down and pretend this is allowed. Instead I whispered, "What are we doing?" His expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I'm not ready to pretend last night didn't happen." Neither was I. My body was still tuned to him like some half-forgotten melody I couldn't stop humming. The way he'd looked at me in the quiet between touches like he was memorizing me. The way his hands had trembled, just slightly, when they found my skin like he was terrified of breaking something sacred. It wasn't just desire. That's what made it dangerous. Because this wasn't supposed to be real. He wasn't supposed to matter. And yet, his scent clung to the pillow beside me, warm and intoxicating. His presence shifted the air around me. The silence between us stretched again, but it wasn't awkward, it was heavy, full, brimming with everything we weren't ready to say. I finally turned to him. Why did you stay? He hesitated. Not because he didn't know, but because he wasn't sure if I wanted the truth. I didn't want to wake up without you, he said quietly. I know I wasn't supposed to, but I did. That was the moment I felt my breath leave me, because I knew the rules. We both did. And he'd broken them with something as simple and as shattering as staying. The phone buzzed again. I didn't look, because in that moment I wanted to forget the rules. I wanted to believe this could exist in the space between night and consequence. I wanted to let go of every reason I had to walk away. But desire is never that kind. He reached for me then, not quickly, not boldly. Just enough to let his hand rest on my wrist, warm and steady. His thumb moved just once, brushing the inside of my pulse point. I felt everything in that single motion. The gravity of it. The ache. The promise. You're shaking, he said. Am I? I hadn't noticed. All I knew was that something was unraveling inside me, and I didn't want it to stop. Tell me not to, he whispered, and I didn't. Because the truth was I didn't want him to stop. Not when his breath was already ghosting over my skin. Not when every cell in my body was leaning toward him like gravity had shifted. The space between us vibrated, pulsed, begged. I should have pulled away. Said something witty, something detached, reminded us both that this was supposed to be a one-time thing, a moment, not a movement. But all I could do was close my eyes and breathe him in. He didn't kiss me. Not yet. He just hovered there. Lips a breath away from mine, letting the tension coil tighter with each second. My heart was pounding like a warning, or maybe a drumbeat. My skin was humming, aching, burning from the heat rolling off him. His hand was still on my wrist, but it moved, slowly, reverently, until his palm was cradling my jaw. I didn't know how something so soft could feel so invasive, so disarming. Like he was peeling me open just by holding my face. I didn't plan this, he murmured, almost apologetic. You know that, right? I know, I breathed. I didn't plan it either. But here we were, still in the tangle of last night's sheets, still suspended in the aftershock of something we weren't supposed to want. He kissed me then. Not hungrily. Not desperately. But like he had all the time in the world to memorize the shape of my mouth. It wasn't a seduction, it was a revelation. Like he was tasting truth. My hands found his chest without thinking, fingertips tracing the lines I'd only dared to explore hours before in the dark. But this time it was different. This time I felt everything. The tension, the confusion, the unbearable softness under the ache. His hands were in my hair, in my thoughts, under my skin. And for a moment, God, just a moment, I let myself fall into him completely. No resistance. No doubt. Just breath and heat and the slow unraveling of everything I thought I'd buried. We pulled apart eventually. Only because we had to. His forehead rested against mine, breath shallow. This isn't just about last night, is it? I shook my head. I think we knew that before we even touched. We sat there, tangled in silence and tension, afraid to move in case it all dissolved. There was a heaviness in the room now, but not regret. Just gravity. Consequences waiting to be acknowledged. I knew what this could mean. What it could ruin. Who it could hurt. But I also knew how he looked at me. Not just with hunger, but with recognition. Like he saw a version of me I hadn't dared to believe in. I should go, he said again, voice softer now. I should. You should, I echoed. But neither of us moved. My phone lit up once more. This time I saw the name, and my stomach clenched. Not from guilt. From complication. He saw the shift in my expression. The flicker of something I couldn't hide. Is that who I think it is? He asked gently. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because he already knew. His words just hung there. You're still seeing him, aren't you? The room, once drenched in the warm afterglow of shared breath and stolen hours, suddenly felt colder. Sharper. As if reality had cracked the window open, letting in a draft of consequences we hadn't wanted to name. I sat still, wrapped in silence. My gaze dropped to the sheets, the same ones we'd twisted into just hours ago. Everything was still so vivid. The shape of his back against the headboard. The way he'd exhaled my name like it hurt. The sounds we made, the stillness afterward. And now this. The truth creeping in like dawn. Unforgiving. He didn't press me. That was the worst part. He just sat there watching me, waiting for me to speak. But how do you explain that your heart is more loyal to your desire than your circumstances? How do you say, I didn't plan this but I don't regret it? I finally nodded slowly. It's complicated. His jaw tightened, but not in anger. In something quieter. Sadder. Yeah, he said. It always is. I hated how careful he was being with me. How patient. Like he was holding my heart in his hands and trying not to bruise it, even though it was already cracked. I didn't lie to you, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We're not. He and I were not good. We've been trying to fix things, but it's been broken for a long time. But not over, he said. Not a question. Just a quiet fact. I nodded. And in that small movement I felt a piece of me dissolve. A part that had hoped this could stay in a dream space where time didn't matter and feelings didn't need names. He looked away, exhaling hard. So what was this? I didn't know how to answer. Because if I told the truth, that it meant more than it should have, that I hadn't felt that alive in years, it would make everything worse. And if I lied, I'd break something sacred between us. It wasn't nothing, I whispered. That made him look at me again. And what I saw in his eyes wasn't anger. It was worse. It was hope. Then why do I feel like I'm the one who just made a mistake? He asked. I reached out before I could stop myself, my fingers brushing his forearm, soft, tentative, unsure. Because you didn't, I said. We both did. He didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned closer. The moment bent again, warm and trembling, balancing between what we felt and what we feared. I knew, he admitted. Before I kissed you. I knew there was someone else. I blinked. Then why? He smiled painfully. Because the way you looked at me, it didn't feel like there was. That undid me. Completely. Because he was right. With him, I forgot the distance I'd built between myself and the world. With him I felt seen. Felt wanted, not just touched. Desired, not just tolerated. There's a difference, and he knew it. Say it, he whispered. If this was just a mistake, say it. I'll walk away. But I couldn't. Because it wasn't. And in that moment I realized. Sometimes temptation doesn't knock. Sometimes it just stays the night, and lingers into morning, asking questions you're not ready to answer. He stood there, half in shadow, half in light, holding his shirt like it might shield him from whatever truth I couldn't say. If you ask me to stay, I will. But I didn't say a word. Because I couldn't give him the words he wanted without tearing something else apart. And yet, the silence between us didn't feel like rejection. Felt like surrender. The kind that hides inside restraint. He let out a long breath, nodding to himself like he understood. Even if it broke something in him to admit it. I thought that would be it. That he'd walk out and I'd spend the rest of the morning replaying every second in my head. Every touch, every pause, every breath. But he didn't move. Instead, he stepped forward just once, and looked down at me with this impossible expression. Half ache, half awe. You'll come find me, he said quietly. When you're ready to stop lying to yourself. And then he left. The door clicked shut, and with it, the heat of his presence vanished. But the room still carried him. His scent, his warmth, the indentation on the sheets where he'd laid beside me like a secret. I didn't move. I couldn't. My body was still vibrating with everything he'd awakened in me. Not just desire but hunger. For connection. For risk. For more. I don't know how long I lay there, suspended between guilt and longing, until I finally pulled myself up and walked to the kitchen. Half naked, heart racing, phone in hand. I had messages. Of course I did. From him. The one I was supposed to belong to. The one who hadn't touched me like that in months. The one who'd stopped seeing me long before I'd let anyone else. The words were familiar. Where were you last night? We need to talk. But there was no fire in them. No jealousy. No heat. Just suspicion. cold and clean. And I realized in that moment, I'd already left him. Emotionally, spiritually. I'd been gone long before anyone touched my skin. Still, I didn't reply. Instead, I poured coffee, wrapped a robe around myself, and tried to pretend I could still fit into the version of myself that didn't know what it felt like to be looked at the way he looked at me. Like I was art. Like I was danger. I was halfway through that illusion when the knock came. 3 soft taps. I froze. Couldn't be him. He wouldn't come back. Not after what I didn't say. I opened the door slowly. And standing there, messy hair, eyes wide, holding 2 paper cups of coffee, was her. My best friend. The one I had confided in. The one who always knew when something was wrong. She raised an eyebrow, took one look at my face, the robe, the shadow behind my eyes, and didn't even blink. "Okay," she said, stepping inside. "Tell me everything. And don't lie, I can smell him on you." My stomach flipped, because I didn't think she'd guess which him I meant. Her eyes locked on mine. And in that moment I knew I wasn't fooling anyone. She didn't need to say it. I saw the shift in her posture, the way her gaze flicked over me, catching all the details I thought I'd hidden. The tousled hair, the robe not quite closed, the tremble I hadn't noticed in my hands. She stepped closer, her voice lower now. Not angry, just aware. "It wasn't your boyfriend, was it?" I looked away, but that was an answer too. She exhaled slow. "Wow." I expected judgment. Or disappointment. Maybe even some moral lecture about boundaries and betrayal. But what I got instead was something far more dangerous. Curiosity. "Who was it?" she asked, stepping into my space like she couldn't help herself. "Do I know him?" I hesitated. Because this was the line I'd always tiptoed around with her. We'd always been too close. The kind of close that flirted with the edge of something deeper. Something neither of us had the courage to name. She noticed the hesitation and tilted her head. "You're blushing." "I'm not." "You are," she said with a sly little smile. "Which means it was good." I opened my mouth to deflect, to joke, to distract, but the look in her eyes froze me. She was watching me like she wanted to crawl inside the story. Like she needed to feel it for herself. I didn't realize I was staring at her mouth until she spoke again. "Tell me," she whispered. "Please." Something twisted in my stomach. Because telling her would be its own kind of intimacy. More exposing than the night itself. And part of me wanted to protect what happened. Keep it just for myself. Sacred. Untouched. But another part of me, darker, lonelier, wanted to see how far she'd follow. So I told her. Not everything. Just enough. The parts that throbbed in my memory. The way he touched me like he didn't trust himself. The way my breath hitched before I let go. The way morning tasted like guilt and heat and something too big to carry. She listened without blinking. And when I finished, she sat back slowly, hands in her lap, eyes unreadable. "You don't regret it," she said, not a question. I didn't answer. She leaned forward, brushing her fingers lightly over my wrist, the same place he had touched me just hours earlier. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "And I need you to be honest." I nodded. "Did you ever think about me like that?" The air left my lungs in a sharp, silent gasp. I froze. So did she. The world shifted. Just a little. "What?" I whispered. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You heard me." There was a long, unbearable silence. A heartbeat stretched to the edge of something we hadn't admitted. And then, she reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, fingers lingering too long. "I've thought about you," she said, softer now. "More than once. I just never said anything." My throat was dry. My chest tight. But the heat in the room returned, different this time. Softer. Slower. Charged. I didn't know what this was, confession, temptation, or revenge against my own loneliness, but I couldn't look away. "What would you do if I kissed you right now?" She didn't laugh after she said it. Didn't shrug it off like a joke. She just watched me. Still quiet, eyes burning with a kind of tenderness I wasn't prepared for. And I froze. Not because I was shocked, but because part of me had imagined this too. There had always been a spark between us. Buried beneath years of friendship and secrets and almosts. We danced around it with inside jokes. Long stares that held too long, late-night conversations that ended in silence instead of goodbye. But we'd never touched it. Never named it. Until now. You shouldn't ask me that, I said softly. Her head tilted. Why? Because I don't know the answer. That made her smile. That's exactly why I asked. She stood then slowly, deliberately, and stepped closer. Her presence shifted the air, thickened it. Her body heat reached me before her hands did, and I swear I could feel her breath before she even spoke again. You're not over him, she whispered. I shook my head. No. And the one from last night? I hesitated. He felt like oxygen. Like something I hadn't tasted in so long I forgot it existed. She nodded, lips pressed together in that way she did when she was thinking too hard. Then so gently it made my chest ache, she touched my cheek. Do you want to feel something different? She asked. God, the way she said it. Not seductive. Not teasing. Just real. Like she was offering me a moment of quiet in a life full of noise. Like she was tired of watching me ache alone. I don't want to lose you, I whispered. You won't, she said, her thumb tracing the edge of my jaw. I'm not asking for forever. I just want to be what you need right now. It was dangerous, maybe even cruel, but I leaned in. Not to kiss her. Not yet. Just to feel the closeness, the possibility, the slow breath between us. She didn't move. She waited like she always had. And my body betrayed me. It leaned, tilted, surrendered an inch. My hands reached for her waist without conscious thought, and the fabric of her shirt bunched between my fingers. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. I've wanted this longer than I'm proud of, she whispered. But I never thought you'd let me. I didn't know I could, I murmured. Until now. My heart was pounding, not with lust but with fear. The kind that comes right before something irreversible. She leaned in, lips just barely brushing mine. Not kissing, not yet. Just letting the electricity rise between us until I thought I'd combust. And then just before we crossed the line my phone buzzed again. I flinched. She pulled back, barely, but I saw it in her eyes. The crash of reality. I should go, she said softly. I caught her wrist. No. Don't. But she was already stepping away. Think about what you really want, she said, heading for the door. Because next time, I'm not stopping. I'm outside. 2 words. No explanation. No warning. I stood frozen in my kitchen, still tasting the ghost of her almost kiss, still feeling the fingerprints of the night before on my skin, and now he was at my door. The one I was supposed to be committed to. The one I hadn't truly touched in months, but still belonged to in name. I stared at my phone like it might swallow the message, but it didn't. It stayed there, glowing, pulsing like a heartbeat I could no longer ignore. There was a knock. Not tentative. Not angry. Just there. I opened the door and there he was. Familiar. Tired. Dressed like he hadn't slept. His eyes scanned me instantly, robe, messy hair, flushed cheeks. His jaw tightened. Were you alone last night? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Because the version of me he remembered, the version who would have lied, who would have swallowed her shame just to keep the peace, was already gone. Do you really want me to answer that? I said softly. He looked at me like he was trying to read between the lines. Like he already knew the truth, but needed me to say it to make it real. I miss you, he said. I know I haven't been what you need, but I want to fix it. Those words used to mean something. Once. But now? They just felt late. I don't need fixing, I said. I just need to feel alive. He stepped forward instinctively, like he could still pull me back if he just reached far enough. We can still have that. You and me. If you just let this, whoever he is, go. My heart twisted, because I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe comfort could feel like fire. But it didn't. Not anymore. I've let a lot go, I said. Including myself. His face faltered. So that's it? One mistake and it's over? I looked at him, really looked. And I realized it wasn't just one mistake. It was every moment I stayed quiet. Every time I convinced myself that numbness was normal. Every year I tucked my desire into some corner of myself so I could keep pretending this was enough. This isn't about one night, I said. It's about waking up and finally seeing what I've been missing. He didn't fight me. Not really. He just nodded slowly. I hope he's worth it. I almost told him it wasn't just him. That there were feelings too complex to label. That the woman who'd held my face like I was sacred had left a crack in me too. But instead I whispered, "I hope I'm worth it." He left without another word. And the silence that followed didn't feel empty, it felt clean. Honest. For the first time in a long time I stood in my own space, wrapped in nothing but truth. I didn't text the man from the night before. I didn't call her either. I just sat on the edge of the bed and let myself feel everything. The ache. The freedom. The heat still lingering in the air. The promise of something new. Something real. Waiting on the other side of my fear.